I'll be showcasing when a gimbal is the best choice. I'll also be telling you how you can make your handheld footage silky smooth in the edit. I'll compare handheld and gimbal footage side by side. And I'll also share when a gimbal completely ruins my vibe. I'll also share when I simply cannot use handheld footage. So if you're ready to talk pros and cons and how to make the best with what you've got, go ahead, smash that like button and let's talk filmmaking. The gimbal I'll be using is the DJI Ronin SC, and the camera I'll be using is a Canon DSLR. Because we're friends, let's go out for coffee. The subjects I'll be using to showcase the difference between handheld and gimbal stabilized footage are likely to stimulate your salivary glands. Things are about to get cinematic and delicious.
You're looking for something strong. What should I get my husband?
A cappuccino.
And can you surprise me with something?
Yeah, I'll do, yes.
Brilliant. Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's granola, gluten-free granola. It's good for your health, and it's got some nuts, almond nuts and walnuts, pumpkin seeds.
Sounds good, chef.
We're gonna be making you a beach bum right now.
Yes, definitely. I'm gonna make that one for you.
Okay.
On the left-hand side, we have handheld footage. I'll be holding the camera with my elbows tucked into my chest so as to create the least amount of camera shake. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to be enabling any digital stabilization. I'm not really a fan of how it crops the image and results in less resolution. On the right-hand side, I have the gimbal. You can watch my video showcasing you basic gimbal moves to give you an idea of the moves that I'll be using. I'll link that video for you in the description. And now for the live side-by-side comparison in 3, 2, 1, let's go! If you're sitting there thinking, I couldn't really tell the difference. Well, don't worry, I actually chose a sequence specifically to shoot something that would give them both a chance to shine. When I discuss the cons of handheld footage, believe me, you'll see there's a difference. But my intention behind shooting that side-by-side footage was to show you that you don't really need to invest too much at the start of your videography career. You can first play around with what you've got before you go investing in a whole bunch of expensive accessories. The accessories are cool, but if you are smart around the sequences that you choose to film, then you can really use what you've got and shoot footage that you're really proud of. Now, let's talk pros and cons. We'll start with the gimbal. The biggest con is the admin. The setup time with the gimbal is a bit of a joke. It takes a bit of time to assemble, balance, and then adjust where needed. I also often find myself missing a shot with the gimbal because I'm midway assembling it or adjusting it, and then the moment rises and I need to shoot, but everything's a little bit of a mess because I haven't set it up quite yet. Also, I end up missing shots because after I've disassembled and reassembled the gimbal for the third time and then packed it away again, and something new comes up, I'll often just be like, oh, you know what, I got enough footage, I'm not putting that thing together again. It can result in you missing epic moments just because you're so over setting it up again. Have I mentioned how heavy it is? Now, guys, I work out, and even though I've been focusing on developing upper body strength, there are still times when after using the gimbal for an extended period of time that my arms just become jelly and I can't even pick them up. When I use my gimbal for a longer period of times with my bigger lens, my goodness, it can get really, really heavy. Another negative about the gimbal is that transitions can be limited. It's not the end of the world because you can also do pretty cool transitions. But if you're hoping for a quick whip transition,
Are you ready for this whip transition? You gotta check out this view. Ready? Whip!
it's very unlikely that you're going to get that right with the gimbal. You might find yourself going into the app on your phone, adjusting the motor parameters, or you'll find yourself in the edit focusing on speed ramping just to get that whip or quick transition if that's what you're looking for. It's a bit of a con, but it's not the end of the world. I don't like being a negative Nancy, so that's enough with the negative. Let's roll over to the positives now. What I love about having a gimbal is that I get silky smooth footage without needing to try too hard. I can also get epic follow shots with stabilized angles. Just look at this example of a really smooth follow shot. Another pro is that I can curve around objects. And I can slip into spaces with my gimbal that I can't fit into myself. The gimbal can also act as a bit of a tripod as well. So setting it up once allows for multiple uses. From the tripod, I can achieve smooth pans by using the joystick. For all of the admin involved with setting up the gimbal, I get to enjoy an easier edit. The in-body stabilization does not require me to overload my computer with heavy post-production edits. For somebody who's just got glasses, this is quite embarrassing to admit, I noticed that some of my past videos that I stabilized in post, these videos were cropped, so when I actually uploaded them, I didn't first check that they actually were reformatted into the correct new size. They were a lot smaller than the frame in which I actually exported. And so if you have to look at some of the videos, you'll see a bit of a black background around the video and a bit of a squonky video that is trying to be stabilized, but it was cropped to assist with stabilization, and I didn't pick this up, and so now I've got a bit of inconsistency if you were to look at some of my past videos, where it goes from the video absorbing the entire space to being cropped and having a bit of a black border around it now. But maybe this is why we love gimbals, because if you use them correctly when it comes to editing, you've set yourself up for greatness. The editing version of yourself will be very thankful that you first focused on capturing the best footage possible so that you don't have to make too many tweaks in the edit. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of using handheld footage. To begin with, you can achieve beautiful handheld footage if you're smart about the way that you hold your camera. For me personally, I find that when I try to become one with the camera, I get fairly stabilized footage. So what I focus on is I just bring my elbows in and I hold the camera pretty close to my core and I try to move as if I were the camera. I also try not to be a bit of a penguin and move sideways. I don't always get it right. But if I move gently, if I move slowly, and if I am, like I said, trying to be one with the camera, I am surprised at the footage I'm able to get. So when we went to that wonderful health cafe, I think it was called the Conscious Cafe, oh my gosh, what a vibe. Their seats are swings. Come on guys, that's amazing. But when we went there, we actually shot 2 different coffee sequences. The first one I shot was using my gimbal. And the second sequence I shot, I actually used my camera. And I found that using handheld footage for the second round of making coffee, the footage was a lot more crisp and clean, and I just got shots that I was a lot more happy to work with. Let me try explain this a little bit better. So if you're using a gimbal, it's very slow and it can also be a little bit jerky if you're not very comfortable with using the joystick, or if you haven't just found your groove with a gimbal. Just because you buy a gimbal doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get better footage. You're still going to have to learn how to use the gimbal. In a way, you kind of have to put in the time to perfect using a gimbal. So it's maybe easier to just get it right with a camera. So when you transition to a gimbal, you've got a better idea of what you're hoping to achieve, because you know what you can get with the camera, you know what you can't get, and you sort of want the gimbal to make up for what you can't get with handheld footage. So I love that I was able to take quick shots. I was able to move slowly around the coffee being made. I didn't have a clunky gimbal in the way. I could slip myself into the kitchen with the chef and baristas and I didn't get in the way. And if I was using my gimbal, well, as you can see, it's quite big. It can get in the way. And sure, I was happy with the coffee footage that I took with the gimbal, but personally I just preferred the handheld footage. So that is a pro. The camera is smaller, so you're not so much of a nuisance when you try insert yourself into situations. And the gimbal size, well, this in itself can make it a bit of a pain sometimes. But like I told you in the middle of this video, the sequences I shot were intended to give both handheld and gimbal footage a chance to shine. But if we have to be realistic, if you're trying to take an action shot and do a bit of a follow shot or a circle shot, and you're not going to film something to just sort of go to a beat, but you're actually trying to get a longer piece of footage, then if you use handheld footage, it can be really, really shaky. So I'm going to show you an example of where I just captured my husband running. And as you can see, the footage is just terrible. It's not pleasant to watch. It can make you feel a little bit dizzy. But I've been able to run after my husband while he's cycling and take some really cool footage of him in action and long pieces of footage because I have a gimbal, and that allows me to just stretch out the silky smoothness of a shot for a longer period of time. My camera allows me to get quick beats where my gimbal allows me to take longer sequences. So when it comes to action footage, I really enjoy using my gimbal. My camera isn't always the best, but this isn't the end of the world. So what I'm going to tell you now is just a little trick I use in editing. So if you use Premiere Pro, what I use to help me when it comes to stabilizing my shaky footage is I just use the warp stabilizer. And you can use this. You can use handheld footage and take a whole bunch of lengthy, shaky sequences and rely on the warp stabilizer to ultimately make the footage smooth for you. The only issue with this for me is that it just takes so long. You have to wait for everything to stabilize and it processes. There's a lot of waiting and dead time. And I'm sure if you edit a lot of videos, you know that time, especially when you're sitting down and editing, there's nothing worse than just having to wait for something to process. So I could use my camera, I could. And for a lot of my early videos, I did use my camera and I did rely on stabilizers in the edit to help me get that creamy feel. But for me, I just prefer using a gimbal now because it just makes editing so much easier. Another pro about using a camera is there's nothing better than seeing a moment, pulling out your camera and capturing it. The setup time versus the setup time of a gimbal, oh my goodness, I'll choose a camera any day. But more expensive cameras actually have built-in stabilization, so I haven't experimented with those. And when I do eventually upgrade my cameras, I'll most definitely make some content showing off these bougie new features that come with the latest models of these cameras. So subscribe to my channel if you want to be made aware of when I post those types of videos in the future. Otherwise, I love using my gimbal, I love using my camera. I've managed to find quite a nice balance of using both of them. And for me, when I capture footage, I usually just think of the editing version of myself. So I think, okay, what am I shooting and how am I going to feel when I'm editing? And then I'll always just try set myself up for success by just taking the right gear to the shoot. And then editing, well, then that becomes a bit of a party for me. But guys, thanks for spending your time with me. I hope you enjoyed how I showcased the difference between handheld and gimbal footage. And if you enjoyed it, there's no better way of showing me than by smashing that thumbs up button. Thank you very much. And if you enjoyed this video, I will leave similar videos that I've made, just reviewing camera gear or gear that's helped me create my videos. I'll leave that in the end screen for you. Also, check out my description if you're keen to see where I get my music for my videos. Let me know in the comments, what do you prefer? Do you like using a gimbal? How have you mastered using handheld footage? Let me know, I'd love to hear from you. I look forward to seeing you in my next video, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.